Last week we celebrated 20 years of the firm being in existence, and it made me reflect on those 20 years. As I mentioned at our celebration speech, it's flown past in Latin, it's tempus fugit, time flies. And it was 20 years ago that we were in the next door building, owned by Sir Noel Robertson, and he used to smoke his big stogies in the lift, which was quite unusual. We don't see that so much these days, but that was 203 Queen Street. That building was corner of Queen and Victoria, used to be ANZ headquarters, and it was found to be filled with asbestos. So Noel gutted the building, stripped it back, had the asbestos removed. My mother and Marissa's company moved into level 6. They were called Madison Recruitment, and Queen City Law took most of level 8. And yeah, it was a nervous time doing a startup like that, and but really we've never looked backwards, and we've had some amazing wins, winning the top property and construction law firm in New Zealand for 5 years in a row, and the top boutique law firm in New Zealand for 3 years in a row. So yeah, it was a great celebration. We had some really dear friends there. We certainly didn't have all our friends. In those 20 years, what's changed? Well, there's a few things that have changed, but in reality, we're really stuck to our knitting. We've remained highly specialized in the area of immigration, particularly business migration, property, construction, contentious construction, and litigation. So in terms of our core services, they haven't really changed much at all. The personnel has changed, and we've grown from sort of less than 10 to over 20 staff, and accordingly, the kind of scale of our operation has changed a bit, and we keep planning for growth even in recessionary times. Our accommodation, our corporate accommodation has changed. So we've gone from 203 Queen Street all the way to the building really next door, 19 Victoria Street West. And here, as I've mentioned in other minutes with Marcus, we have over 600 square meters, and we have a really bespoke and well-designed office that suits our business purposes extremely well. But no, we've stuck to our core values, and we've stuck to our core strengths. How has social media impacted the firm? Yeah, that's a really good point, because I think 20 years ago we probably didn't have much, because no one did. With the invention of the internet in the mid-90s, so we've kept abreast with it. We were pioneers early on with Google, and we actually spent money advertising, and then got more into the organic search engines. And yeah, I mean, Queen City Law has played a big role. We're now looking at moving away from just our YouTube videos. I think we're the leading law firm in New Zealand in that space, and considering perhaps doing some podcast type presentations. Okay, so you're asking what will happen and what changes might we experience in the next 5 to 10 years. I guess one of the things that we're going to be right at the forefront of is with the Asian community of Tamaki Makaurau, heading up towards 30–40%. I think we're going to be at the forefront of a lot of the wave of development and entrepreneurship, given the makeup of our law firm, seeing that we cover, Korean, Chinese, Indonesian, Filipino. What have I missed? So we have very, very strong roots in those communities, and particularly in the business communities and in the development communities. So I think the firm will continue to spearhead a lot of the larger project development work around Auckland, and maybe further afield. And I think we will get smarter and smarter with our technology, with the AI and now the AR stuff coming into play. And I think we'll remain at the forefront of those fields. In my mind, our hurdle is just ourselves. We're only limited by the restrictions we sometimes impose on ourselves. And I don't know if you've read Asterix and Obelix, but Asterix always used to say, we have nothing to fear but the sky falling on our heads. So for me, we sometimes limit ourselves with in different ways when we don't need to. And this firm, I think, we've really encouraged a lot of freedom of expression, and so we have very little limitations except the limitations we kind of impose on ourselves. In my career, one of the great moments of success was across the road where the bungee jump site is, which is the Wilson's car park. some 4,400 square meters there. It took us 4 years to win a contestable process of a resource consent. Our main opponent was a submitter called Sky City, which had a very deep pocket, and after 4 years of battling them with 20 consultants working for our developer client, which we almost quarterbacked, we were finally successful in the contestable hearing, the 5-day hearing process. That's what it came down to. And we won that by being extremely well prepared. For those who wouldn't have been able to fund that, or weren't resourceful, or weren't resilient, they would not have got there, but we did. And I think it's a good thing the government's trying to make that process easier, because the vast majorities of companies would not have had the financial resource or the intellectual horsepower or the tenacity to win that process like we did. A great question. So for me, the thing is, I've heard the firm at some of the celebrations recently described as a second family for some of the lawyers in the firm, and for us, it's every day coming to work has been a real privilege and a joy, meeting our colleagues and assisting clients with their requirements. So to keep motivated and to remain relevant is really critical, and to do that, it's finding stuff that you find really challenging and professionally rewarding. One example of the work type that we do, of course, is with the immigration work. Like the guys, when they get their residence visa, they're just so overwhelmed with emotion and joy, having been through that whole immigration maze and the bureaucracy, and getting police certificates and medical certificates and x-rays and work references and financial background references. By the time they get to the end of that process, it's kind of exhausting. Same thing happens with litigation. It can go on and on and on. So, to remain excited and enjoy, it's getting the satisfaction of assisting your clients getting through the turbulent seas to where they want to get to, and the enjoyment that comes, the professional satisfaction that comes from that. For the junior lawyers and then the intermediate senior lawyers, it's continuing to be passionate about what you do and continuing to enjoy the people that you work with. And that's why having a really strong and supportive culture is fundamental to ensuring that you get successful outcomes. Okay, today's been really interesting. Up early, we had a team meeting at 10 o'clock. We then had lunch with a former cabinet minister called Stuart Nash, a very famous Auckland real estate agent called Graham Wall, and a leading New Zealand artist. And yeah, that was a fascinating lunch discussing politics in the USA, where we are as a country, what the OIO rules, and whether the government may relax the prohibition on foreigners buying residential property here, and what that may look like. And there's some insight that in the end will end up, everyone will recall all the discussions around the election, but we may end up with a situation where people investing in residential property over $4 million are exempt from the ability not to buy a home here. So that was an intriguing discussion. This evening we have a employment law conference here for some of our largest clients, being presented by Tina, and I have the pleasure of introducing her. So a long day, but an exciting one.